how do we make 2026 our best year yet? Here's what I'm learning. Redefine what best year means for you. Stop comparing your journey to anyone else's. Your best year doesn't have to look like Instagram perfection, okay? Maybe it's the year you finally set boundaries. Maybe it's the year you stop apologizing for your choices. Maybe it's the year you choose rest over hustle. You get to decide what type of year you want. Hola, hola, amiga. I am back. Welcome to season 6 of the Viva la Mami podcast, and I am so excited you are here. I want to take a moment to say thank you, specifically for those that have tuned in for the previous 5 seasons here on the Viva la Mami podcast. But if you're new here, well, bienvenida, welcome. I am very excited that you're here porque unlike the rest of the motherhood podcasts available in this sort of like podcast market, unfortunately, they're not a lot of motherhood podcasts that are specifically related to the Latina perspective. And so Viva la Mami is here to help you redefine the meaning of madrehood so that way you can create your own path without any shame or guilt that often is involved in our cultura and as well as society. And so my hope is for you to tune in for this season and future seasons of this podcast. This podcast exists and continues to grow because of you, especially for those that have started since day one in September 2022, because you show up, you listen, you share. And if you've been enjoying the Viva la Mami podcast and want to support the show, here's what you can do. First of all, rate and review the podcast. It literally takes 2 minutes and helps other Latina moms discover us. Also, downloading your favorite episodes tells the algorithm to share our show with more mommies who need it. Please share episodes with your amigas, your primas, your comadres, and even your mama, where we often talk a lot about that, if you know what I'm saying. So every review, every download, every share helps us build this community even stronger. So I would really appreciate that. All right, so now I'm going to get into this solo episode. It's been a while. It's been like 2 months since you've heard my voice, at least with an updated episode. And so I just want to, again, welcome you. I can't believe we're here in 2026 and it is season 6. So this season is going to be different. And I'll tell you why in a bit. But first, I want to talk about where I'm recording this episode from. If you haven't yet heard my story, I am currently in Mexico. So I'm sitting here in my casita in León, Guanajuato, Mexico. My boys are at school in Mexico, so they are already halfway through the year, which is wild. The sun is still shining and it still feels like it's July, which is the month that we moved in Mexico. And this is my first winter without feeling it being winter. I am from Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago. And so it is so odd to me that there is no snow. It is so odd to me that I'm not wearing a heavy ass jacket. I'm currently wearing a denim tan jacket. It's literally 70 degrees during the day. Then it falls down to 40s, I would say mid 40s. Everything feels different. And I would say that ever since in July 2025, when we moved to Mexico, our lives changed forever. And if you haven't heard our story, we packed up our lives from Chicago and moved to here in Mexico. And let me back up and give you the full picture. In January 2025, so literally a year ago, I hosted a intentions workshop as part of my community, the Viva la Mami collective in Chicago. And I remember writing that I needed to make a radical change. I had 4 different plans of what could lead to this change. And the last one, like literally plan D, was for my family and I to move to Mexico. My husband and I had been talking about this, I would say, for the past 2 years. And this was after a trip that we took in Mexico for we stayed here for 4 weeks, and we loved it. We loved everything that had to do with Mexico. And this was my first time visiting Mexico as a mom, and literally the way that families are treated here, the way that Mexico is honestly centered around community, but specifically family, like that really changed my perspective. And so that 4-week trip literally changed our vantage point about perhaps the possibility of moving to Mexico. But that was kind of like plan D. Like I said, that was okay, well, if nothing works out in 2025, then maybe this can be a possibility. And so in February, I had a final interview for my dream job, actually working at my alma mater. And while I was waiting to hear back, we went to Acapulco for a friend's wedding. And literally, being that it was my husband and I only that went to Acapulco. It was our first trip since having our 2 kids. And my husband and I were literally able to talk to each other. And we sat down and we chatted. I don't know for how long we were there, at a restaurant by the beach, but we literally were talking about our goals for 2025. And my husband and I agreed that if I don't get this job, we're moving forward with plan D, which was relocating to Mexico. Obviously, I didn't get the job because I'm here. And so between February, when I got the call back after our trip, till July, this was all a momentum of us planning, getting ready, saving up, even selling our things for our move to Mexico. And in July, we were on the road. And so I just want to give you kind of that context because, first of all, if you haven't followed me on social media, and if you start doing this, you'll see that people just make generalizations about me and my life and our decision to move to Mexico. And I literally got a comment about a previous episode, and I'll share you these episodes in my Living in Mexico series from the past season. I did a whole-blown series of our new life in Mexico. And one of the topics was if we are gentrifying Mexico. And so I'm not going to go through that because I'll literally go in a rabbit hole. But when I was promoting this episode on social media, literally I saw a comment today that, oh, tú eres gringa y vete a la whatever. And so I just want to give you all context that we do not consider ourselves expats. And I believe that this is reverse migration. Our families migrated to the United States out of necessity so that they can achieve the American dream. And they did. They achieved their own version of the American dream. But for us, and this is speaking out of privilege, which is something that I understand and know and accept. But being that I am a byproduct of this American dream, I could have, and I do have the right to say, well, the American dream for me is not working out for us. And so we have that leverage especially as children of immigrants, to come back home. Even though culturally, we are raised very differently than in a different country, obviously, we are still connected with our roots, especially first, second generation children of immigrants. Once you're in the third, fourth generation, it can be a little difficult, but you can still navigate it, and it can still be possible for you to go to the motherland. And so if you want to hear the full story of how we literally prepared for this move, like I said, I will include in the show notes and the description of this video of my whole Living in Mexico series, where I am co-hosting it with my husband, Alex, and we literally talked about our experience. Also, if you want to have more episodes related to our life in Mexico with my husband, let me know and I can definitely have him over. So just let me know if you want any specific topics or themes related to our life here in Mexico. 2025 was definitely a year of like making radical change and learning different lessons. And I shared this in a previous episode, again, as part of the Living in Mexico series. We shared different lessons that we learned about the move here in Mexico, especially now experiencing it after a couple months. At the time of this recording, we're heading towards like 6 months, like half a year here living in Mexico. And even though we are 100% like content, we are really happy here, we haven't regretted our decision at all. I would say though that there are moments when we feel like outsiders, where there are still moments when, even though we are like one generation skipped from our families and ancestors coming from Mexico, we still feel like in a way we don't belong. And I think that's just part of that sort of story, whether if you are immigrating into a totally different country or moving and relocating to the country in which your family is from. So even though we're fluent Spanish speakers, I mean, even though we're children of immigrants, even though this is our cultura, there are days when I question, do we belong here? Like, are we Mexican enough? And for those of us that are children of immigrants and who are first gen specifically, and even second generation, like we in the US, we've always questioned, like, are we American enough? Like, we never seem to fit in. And now coming here, there are definitely moments when I feel like I don't belong and I don't feel Mexican enough, because obviously I grew up in a different country, in a different culture, in a different way of like being. And so literally ni de aquí ni de allá is all over again, but in a different way. And so for those of you who have immigrated to a different country, let me know. Is this the way that you feel too? Let me know by sending me a DM on Instagram, or you can respond in the comments. And so yeah, those are kind of like my feelings right now, and kind of like the reflections and lessons learned from 2025. But what's ahead in 2026? Well, let me share my intentions with you, because I do believe in the power of manifestation. So as far as with personal family goals, I'll be honest with you. It's been taking me close to 2 years now to find like full-time employment. And I am not looking for a traditional type of job, because first of all, I'm in Mexico. So I'm trying to look for a super flexible remote job, or because I am a dual citizen, I'm also open to looking for a job here in Mexico. It all just depends on the pay, because unfortunately the pay is lower than what I'm used to. But all what I'm looking for is essentially a job, a position where it is flexible, because, you know, I'm a mom, and even though my kids are in school, obviously I'm the default parent. Let's just face it. Even though my husband is truly supportive and everything, and is 100% on and here in full support and everything, like, let's face it, I'm the default parent. And so I do want flexibility if in case I have to pick up the kids from school because they're sick or something like that. And the school hours here are kind of odd. I mean, they have a regular start time, just like everywhere else in the US. They start at 8 a.m., but they leave at 1:15 p.m. How the heck am I going to find a 9-to-5 job type thing? So I definitely want like a flexible job in that regard. And then something that pays enough for me to save as a stay-at-home parent. Even though I did get income, I do receive income, little sources of income here and there. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to save for my retirement. I used to like invest in the stock market, and that's something that I haven't done, at least through me. My husband has been doing that, but I also want to allow this additional source of income so that, we wouldn't feel as tight when it comes to our savings, and also just like having this sense of cushion and security for my family. I have been used to having my own income and kind of being in control of my money because it was my money. And that's something that has been very challenging for me. And I'll be honest with you, like I haven't monetized the way that I wish here. In fact, this podcast has been completely non-monetized. And so all of these resources that I have been sharing is basically given out for free to y'all. And all what I want in return is just like at least some love and support, right? This is truly a labor of love. And the reason why I'm doing this is to have the representation that we need as Latinas, but also as mamas. And so for those of you who are in the job market, who have been in the job market, I mean, I'm with you. I know that it has been very rough for all of us right now, especially when you need flexibility as a mama. And so for this season, I am going to have guests who talk about like money, but also about like ways to help empower you to look for jobs, especially in this rough job market. That's basically it for my personal goals. I don't want to go overboard, but definitely securing a job in 2026. As far as with Viva la Mami, I do want to grow. I mean, I have been doing this platform, for the podcast since September 2022. And really since then, that's when I started to evolve on social media and through my website, on the blog. But I definitely want to grow. I'm shifting my business model into content creation, where hopefully I can get a couple like leads with like brand deals and like other ways to monetize, because I'm trying to look for ways to monetize. And so that's a little bit of a change that on Instagram, you're going to see a little bit more on like that content creation influencer type work. But don't worry, the podcast is still here. The newsletter is still here, the blog as well. So I just want to be intentional of the work that I'm doing, so that way I can just continue to build community. And that is also something that I want to continue doing, is to build community specifically for las mamás that are here in Mexico and online, because that's what this is all about, comunidad. And speaking of which, if you want to support this growth of Viva la Mami, here's what you can do. You can follow me on Instagram, which is @Viva la Mami. You can follow me on TikTok, which is @Viva la Mami _. You can rate and review this podcast and download your favorite episodes. And of course, you can also share this with other Latina moms who need this. That is like the simplest way that you can do. I know that you are listening because I see it. I know that you're following me on Instagram, but do you listen on the podcast? So just know that there's so many resources that I share here. It's not just me just talking and blabbing and all that stuff and talking about my life. No, I also share very intentional and specific topics that can help you in your motherhood journey. And so every single one of these actions will help me reach more mommies like you. And so as far as with season 6, this is what's coming up. I am doing a series about mamas moving or traveling abroad with their families. This is something that I've not really seen representation of. There is definitely a lack of like Latina, specifically like Latina parents, mamas, traveling abroad or moving abroad with their families. So I'm going to do this whole series by interviewing mamas just like you and me that we're able to do this and make this possible, because I'm pretty sure that if you're listening, I'm pretty sure this has been in back of your mind. Just saying. I know it. I just know it. So I'll be interviewing mamas who've made similar moves like us or are traveling around the world with their families. And these are going to be real stories, real advice, and real talk about what it takes to live abroad. Also, with what's new for season 6, I will be interviewing people in Espanol, whether if it's a VLM spotlight episode or if I'm inviting expert guests. I want to grow my audience where it's not just going to be in English, but also in Espanol. So that way we can kind of share this commonality of like the struggles, challenges, but also the awesome part about being a Latina mom. And so as part of that, I will be interviewing guests, whether if they are the every Latina mom sharing her motherhood story. This has always been the heart of the Viva la Mami podcast, which is called the VLM Spotlight episodes. And so I believe that your stories matter and I want to amplify them. And if you want to be a guest, I will be adding links in the show notes and description of this video on how to apply to be a guest on the show. I'm also going to be interviewing expert guests, so I'll be bringing in professionals who can best inform you and other Latina moms on topics that impact our everyday lives. This is from mental health, education, finances, parenting, all of it in between, whether if it's in English or in Espanol, so that way, you can be best informed. And of course, you'll be hearing from me on solo episodes like this one, where I can get real with you and talk about what I'm learning, struggling with, and celebrating as well. So I think I know what you're going through right now. You're questioning if the American dream is even real. With the whole political climate about our communities being affected by ICE raids, deportations, family separations, with the ridiculous costs of housing, food, childcare, like the basic necessities. And you're watching our comunidad suffer and wondering, well, what's going on? Like, what now? And on top of that, you're dealing with mom guilt probably. You're questioning, am I raising my kids well? Am I breaking generational curses or creating new trauma? Am I doing enough to keep my kids connected to their roots? Are they bilingual enough? Should I be doing more, saying more, being more? And I see you, I feel you, and I am with you. How do we make 2026 our best year yet? Here's what I'm learning. Redefine what best year means for you. Stop comparing your journey to anyone else's. Your best year doesn't have to look like Instagram perfection, okay? Maybe it's the year you finally set boundaries. Maybe it's the year you stop apologizing for your choices. Maybe it's the year you choose rest over hustle. You get to decide what type of year you want. Let go of what's not serving you. We don't need to carry everything into our future. What beliefs are you ready to release? That you have to do it all alone? That asking for help is weakness? That you're not Latina enough or American enough? Make space for new stories and new possibilities. Remember that. This is something that I really challenge you to do. Build your network intentionally. As mamas, we tend to isolate ourselves. We tend to not show up in front of the people that can probably make an impact or a difference in your life. And so I want you to remember that your network is your net worth. I want you to look who's in your corner, who lifts you up, who can call you when you're struggling. If you don't have that comunidad yet, start building it. Join groups like mine, at least for now. It's a virtual community, but there's also so many community groups in your area. Like, I thought I was going to have a hard time looking for one here in León, but that's not true. It was very easy for me to find comunidad. And on both sides, I would say, this is what's funny. I've been able to leverage, right? And I think as Latinas, we can use our biculturalism, bilingualism at our disposal, even when creating communities. You can be in a community with moms that are not Latinas, but you can also have community with Latinas. And so you can be in these best of both worlds. And that's something that I want you to think about, right? Like, reach out to that mom at school if you feel alone. Send that DM to someone whose story resonates with you. We need each other. We need to uplift each other, especially as mamas. Choose your own path without shame. This is my motto, redefining madrehood. You get to create your own version of motherhood. The transformation I want for you is to give yourself permission to choose your path and the freedom from guilt and shame. And I know that is hard, especially as Latinas, but that is something that I want you to think about and set these tips as like part of your 2026 goals. I want you to have confidence that you know what's best for you and your family. And I want you to seek that community that supports you no matter what you choose. I want you to take action. Look at 2026 with fresh eyes. What's one thing you've been too scared to try? What's one dream you keep putting on the back burner? What if 2026 was the year you actually did it? It doesn't have to be moving to another country like I did, though it could be possible. But maybe it's finally starting therapy or setting boundaries with your familia, starting that business, taking that trip that you've always wanted to go to, having that hard conversation with your partner, asking for that raise at your job, or leaving the job that's draining you. And so, amiga, let me leave you with this. 2025 taught me that courage doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do it anyway. I was terrified to move to Mexico. I was terrified of failing. I was terrified of just like not being employed. But you know what? It's okay. I essentially did something, that saying when one door closes, another door opens. Like, it is so true. Sometimes the path will lead you into something that you never thought of. And I've learned that on the other side of fear is freedom. And I also want to remind you that your ancestors were so brave to leave everything they knew. They crossed borders, they learned new languages, they built lives from nothing. That courage is in your blood. Again, that's the power of being a Latina, and especially a Latina mom. So you have everything that you need already inside you. And so in 2026, I want you to trust yourself more, ask for help often, please. Let go of what's weighing you down, build your comunidad, choose your own path, and know that whatever you decide, no estás sola. You are not alone. We're in this together and redefining motherhood one decision at a time. So tell me one thing that you're committing to in 2026. Let me know on Instagram. You can DM me on Viva la Mami, or you can let me know in the comments below. I want to hear from you. And if this episode resonated with you, rate and review the podcast. Share with a mommy who needs to hear this, and download your favorite episodes of the Viva la Mami podcast because it'll help me so much. I'm so excited, y'all. Like, season 6 is going to be amazing, and I'm glad you're here for it. All right, amiga. Well, thank you so much for listening. Hasta la próxima, y nos vemos in the next episode.